Welcome back to Tweeter's Tech, folks. I apologise, I know I said I was going to include this in the last video, but I'm trying to keep my videos short. So we're going to crack on with offline emulation. There is a lot to cover. I think the easiest way to start off with, now, most people who are into emulation, PC or Android based, a lot of people are going to refer to RetroArch. I'm not knocking RetroArch, it just wasn't for me. And I started with emulation before RetroArch came along. So I'm just going to show you what I have been using for the last few years. As an early adopter of Android, I'd say my first phone was probably when the Google Nexus came out and Samsung made that phone. I can't remember when that was. That might have been before the Galaxy S series phone started, or maybe around that time. So Android was still kind of doing its thing, getting established, and it had to play a lot of catch up to iOS. But one of the things I did pick up on was emulation from this particular guy. His name's Robert Broglia. Particularly this app, MD.emu, which basically played Mega Drive and Master System games in one application. So if we look on his store, I'm going to go through his interface, but if I show you what other apps I would recommend downloading, there's NES.emu, this Super Nintendo one with a weird, there's a lot going on it, Super NES 9X EX Plus, it's quite a lot to take in, the Neo Geo one, MSX, I've never used that one before, but all of these applications pretty much are the same as the one I'm about to show you. So what we'll do is we'll go to the Android home screen, just to give you an idea of what I've got. You can see I've got the game streaming folder, Android games, and we'll go to emulators, because this is what you kind of need if you want to dig deeper with emulation. I showed you the online app that pretty much has everything covered, from BIOS files to emulators to the actual ROMs. This is if you want to, not rely on an internet connection, and if you want to just dig in a bit more, customize a bit more, eventually put a front end. I'll be looking at Reset, which is an alternative to Launchbox, which I actually prefer. But these are the apps. You can see I've got a MAME application, Super Nintendo, SNES. But we'll look at the MD.emu. Sorry, I said that wrong. MD.emu. And this is what the menu looks like initially. You click on Open Content, and that will take you to the folder where you've got your ROMs. So before any of this, I should have said before, you need to download your ROMs. You can get them anywhere, put them in the subfolders. Actually, what I'll show you quickly is if I go to my File Explorer, and I'll go to my SD card. I think it's quite important to put your ROMs in an obvious place. You can see here I've got everything categorized: GameCube, Game Boy Advance, MAME, Master System, Mega Drive, so on and so on. And some of the ROMs are going to be displayed differently. Some are zipped, some are unzipped. It's just about getting used to which ones need to be zipped, etc. But I kind of leave Mega Drive, Master System, Super Nintendo as they come, basically. So they're in the File Explorer. We'll go to the application. You can see here I've got some Mega Drive ROMs. Now if I click on the arrow at the top, it will give me the option to go to Master System as well. So I can play any of these games. Click on Alex Kidd in Miracle World. I have been playing it recently, and it does an automatic save. I'll use the controller to click on Continue, and let's turn the volume down a bit. Now, just like my other app, I have got this stretched aspect ratio to stretch. It's just a preference. You might prefer a 4.3, but as you can see, it looks fine. Now, in order to get out of here, I think I've got to press the left shoulder button. I've actually mapped it to that. You can change the configuration, whatever you want to do. I won't go through all these games. We'll just load up another one. Shinobi. Looks good. Aspect ratio is the same, and I'll show you where to change that. All good. I won't embarrass myself too much. I'll come out of here, press back. Now, this is the main menu. So we've got System Actions. I'll just go through what I've actually changed, and you can play around with it when you've actually downloaded it yourself. Now, on-screen input setup, I'm assuming that, like myself, you want to use an external device, so you want to turn off any virtual gamepad, any virtual touchscreen controls, any menu buttons. The idea is you don't want any buttons on a display. So you turn all these off, unless you want to use your phone, and then you can whack them back on. But I'm going to assume you've got a device like myself. Gamepad setup, you click on that to auto-detect what device you're doing, and you can map the controls. I'm not going to mess around with it because I've spent ages setting it up. You just need to spend some time going through that and mapping your controls to your preference. Options, video, I haven't touched anything, I don't think. No, hold on, I lie. Aspect ratio, full screen. You can change that to custom value 1.1, 4.3, but I want to keep it on full screen. I think that's all it was on video that I changed. Audio I didn't touch. System, let's have a look. Fast flow speed. I wonder if I can turn that off actually. I'll leave that alone. And file paths, that's basically where you're going to keep your ROMs, I guess. Unless I got that wrong. No, that's where the BIOS files go, but I think they automatically generate that. I don't ever recall downloading these myself. Pretty sure they downloaded it, but I could be wrong. Things might have changed since the latest update. But that's all I pretty much played with in terms of the options. Go back to open content, and let's go back to the Mega Drive games, just to give you an idea that we can play Golden Axe. Looks good. So that's one app that plays Mega Drive and Master System games. So we'll come out of that. Let's have a look what else we've got emulator wise. So the NES one is pretty much the same. Super Nintendo is pretty much the same. We'll go to the MAME Reloaded. This particular app plays a certain ROM set. So when you download ROMs, MAME has, if you know, there's hundreds of types of ROM sets. They keep getting updated. This one plays a particular ROM set, 0.139U1. It's a bit of a mouthful. I spent some time looking for that particular ROM set, but I didn't download the whole thing. I just got the games that I wanted to play. And you can see here, it's got some of the best MAME games. What should we click on? A bit of R-type. So we click on the B button. Sometimes you have to press left and right on the D-pad. It's a bit unusual. So it's loading up, and just like the MAME games on the PRG app, you've got a button mapped to credit. So in this one it's select again, unlimited credits, press start. I think I mentioned before, MAME is something that you can't actually save your progress on. So, you know, I guess you've got to emulate it to a certain point. But it's a minor inconvenience. That's me done on R-type. I'll click on the left shoulder button. Once again, it's another button that's been mapped. You can click on settings and tinker a little bit more. So here's where you play around with the filters, the emulation speed, input, where you basically determine whether you want to map controls, have touchscreen controls. There is a lot on this app. I won't go through it all. Scaling mode, stretch to fit, that's what I've done. Overlay effect, you can have the bars on the side, you know, if you want custom themes. But I've kept it pretty straightforward, pretty standard. And in terms of actual effects, I've kept things as they are. I haven't really tinkered too much. So let's come out of that. I think it's the right shoulder button actually to escape. So just to refresh, it's left shoulder button for options. For now anyway, you can change that, and right shoulder button to exit the game. Let's see, what else should we try? Bit of Street Fighter maybe. Now, as you can imagine, there's a lot to cover of emulation. I'm just going to show you a few of the apps that I am kind of used to using. I have been dabbling with the Dolphin emulator for GameCube, as well as Wii, and as well as A4SX2 for the PS2. I'm still kind of getting used to those apps, so I'm not going to go on about them. I think once I've played around with them, got a bit more experience, I'll then do a separate review on those ones. And it's worth looking at more experienced emulation users that can probably talk to you about that more. I don't really want to dwell into that too much. But here's Street Fighter 2. Is it Super Street Fighter 2? Yeah. This plays fine. Let's see if I can still... Yes, still got it. Sort of. Controls are a bit different. We'll come back out. Anyway, so that's some of my arcade games. They work fine as well. Emulators, what else? So like I said, Aether SX2, I don't feel like I'm experienced enough to really go through that, and that's constantly changing. It's still a beta app. I'd say with Dolphin, you want to get the MJR2 version, which is not on the Play Store, although there is a Play Store version of that. I'll load it up anyway. I've got a few games on here. I'm still trying to figure out what the best settings are on this. Let's load up Luigi Mansion. Now for this emulation, you need to, let's have a look. Fan speed, you want it up a little bit more because I've got it off at the moment. I would put it on smart at least. Let's see. Sorry, just checking I'm still recording. Okay, this doesn't take too long to load up. I did have Simpsons Hit and Run on this, but I've lost it somehow, so I'm going to download that. That was my favourite GameCube game. But it's nice to know that Mario and Luigi games are working as well. I never had this game, so I don't know how accurate it is compared to the original. If you had a GameCube, you can sort of judge for yourself how it looks. Looks pretty good to me. Don't really know what I'm doing because I never really played this. Let's see, how do we exit? For now, I guess I'm just going to have to swipe. Yep. And we can exit emulation. I think that's a button I haven't actually got mapped. Let's see. Like I said, I'm still getting used to this. It does work, and there are places where you can download GameCube ROMs. It's not too hard. What else have we got? Aether SX2, another one that's, you know, I've spent a lot of time downloading these ROMs. These ones I did have to unzip, but as you could probably imagine, different settings for different games. Mortal Kombat Charlie Monks, that was a game that I was obsessed with on the original Xbox, so I was surprised to get hold of this. This has got a recent update, so I've not played around with it since the update, but it looks good so far. Where are we going? Oh, not a good start, not a good start. Where are we going? Just play with some of the moves for a little bit. There are a lot of graphic and video settings that you can play with on this just to get it right. But it's playable out of the box, and that's good. You know, if you've got the time to play around with the settings, I would do, because then you can really get the best out of it. Let's see, how do we get out of this one? Another swipe exit. Exit game. Now you can imagine there's a lot of emulators that we could spend a lot of time on. I'm not going to go on about Drastic, which is the NDS, Dolphin, and Aether SX2. I've shown you a little glimpse of some of the emulators. You know, have a little glimpse, have a little play yourself, and you know, you'll figure out eventually. But it's nice to have all these emulators on what people call a front end or a launcher, which tidies it all up. Once you've done all the background work, I've come across an app called Reset. Now, Reset to me is a slightly simpler alternative to Launchbox. The Launchbox community is huge, and it's been getting constant updates, and I've used it for a while. I just didn't find it as user-friendly as this app. So this is, when I say a front end, for people who don't know what that is, the idea is it's a nice tidy interface that puts all your emulators, all your ROMs and BIOS files together, kind of like the PRG app, but it's not providing any games, it's not providing the software, it's just downloading the data, you know, from the game art to the audio clips. I'll give you an example. So at the moment on here, I've got various systems. So I've got my Android games. So we click on there, it's recognised what games I've got on here that are from the Play Store. And then it downloads the relevant art. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you need to download something from Google, like I did with Colin McRae and Crazy Taxi. I'm not sure why that was, but I had to do that. It's all good. MAME, that's my MAME app, and you know, you click on one of the games, it gives you like a detailed description, and you can also have video playing in the background, so it shows you some gameplay footage, and that's something you can play around with in the settings, whether you want that or not. I think it looks really professional. So various arcade games here. This is all set through my main app. So next up, N64. I've got the Mupin 64 Plus app that I paid for. and that's linked into this. You click on the game, same kind of thing, it's got the information. Sometimes you get gameplay footage, sometimes you don't. Wait about 5 seconds. If it doesn't happen, it's not going to happen. But some of these do, and you just kind of have to go through. Here, Donkey Kong 64, it hasn't got any game art. It's probably because the file name is worded in a way that's not recognised. So if I go to the file explorer, it probably says Donkey Kong ... 64, and that might be stopping it from getting that art. All you have to do is go into the file explorer, rename it to Donkey Kong 64, and it should find it. Otherwise, you can always rescan, and the data will come up again. Let's see if this has got any video footage. Mario Kart 64, nothing there. No. Well, some of these do, some of these don't. DS is there, Game Boy Advance. And as you can see, it just puts all my emulators, all my ROMs into one nice, tidy interface, and it doesn't require an internet connection. So everything up to PS2 is all in here. Now, I'll give you an idea as to how you put it together. It's pretty straightforward. You come back here. I've left one off that I haven't put on here so far. So we're going to add a new system, and we're going to focus on the original Nintendo system. NES. So we'll click on that, and it wants me to tell them which emulator I'm using. I'm using Robert Brogler's emulator, which is NES.emu, so I'll click on that. And then it wants me to tell them where I'm putting the actual ROMs. I think I showed you before that I've got them on the SD card. So I'll come back here and go to my external SD card. I'll scroll down to ROMs, and then I'll choose my NES ROMs. Right, so then I'll click on choose current folder. Next up, what do we do here? Image download settings, add games, image resolution. So it's going through all the settings about how and when it will download the images. I've just kept everything at high, I haven't really changed anything here. Download front box art, keep that ticked. Back box art, keep that ticked. That's the background art. The logo, I've kept that ticked. And screenshots if it's available. Fan art. The idea is I've ticked everything really. Now over here you can add games without scraping or scrape add games. I think the difference being is you just add the games without the art, I think. But I'm going to click on scrape and add games. So we'll click on that. It's loading the data. It's uploading the ROMs. And if we go down, we'll hopefully find, here we go, Nintendo Entertainment System. So you can click on that and it will give you a list of the games if you want a simplified file. If you come back out, it will show the game like the other ones. It's got the description of the game, it's got a little screenshot. Come on, I'm hoping for a video on one of these. Maybe not this one, Donkey Kong maybe. And I wonder whether it does actually need to be connected to the internet. I'm on my Wi-Fi at the moment. Doesn't seem to be showing any video footage. Let's see. Not going to be this one. There we go, we got one. Like I said, it's hit and miss, but it's not the end of the world. If it bothers you that much, you can just turn the video option off and just have a screenshot. I can be a bit OCD about these things, so it bugs me a little bit. But there it is, it's quite easy to use. If you press back, this is the main menu. You go to your systems, that's them all listed. You go to your games, that's all of them there. It looks really professional, really simple to use as well. Quit if you want to add a new system, refresh the collection, and then it shows a list of all the apps that you're using from all the games, from the emulators. It's just like a standard launcher really. And in settings, it's pretty much what we saw when we were uploading a system. So this to me is a really nice tidy front end I would recommend using with those apps that I've used. Whether you go my path and go with Robert Brogler's apps, or whether you go with RetroArch or anything else, I'd recommend putting it on this one because I personally think it is easier and better than Launchbox. But that's just my preference. that's me done with emulation. There is a lot more we can do, and the more time I spend with MMRG and A4SX2, you know, maybe I'll come back to that. But for now, you know, we've covered native gameplay, we've covered emulation. Next video, I reckon, will focus on cloud streaming with Game Pass, Steam Link. Maybe if I can get hold of the PlayStation one. I don't have a PlayStation account. Be interesting to see if I can do that. But thanks again for tuning in. Stay tuned to the next Tweefers Tech video. Take care.